Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 6 p.m., June 24th, for the Planning Commission. Can we go ahead and get a roll call?
Commissioner Engelke,
Here?
Commissioner Ware,
Here.
Commissioner Kirkley, Commissioner Vidal,
Here.
Commissioner Stokes,
Here.
Commissioner White. Commissioner White is not here. Commissioner Carter
Here.
and Commissioner McGann here.
Thank you very much. If everyone will stand, we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, on to the previous minutes. Hope everyone's had a chance to look over them. Do we have any discussion or a motion?
Chairman, go ahead. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the old minutes.
We have a motion for acceptance of minutes. Do we have a second? I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ware,
Yes.
Commissioner Kirkley. Yes. Commissioner Vidal,
Yes.
Commissioner Stokes,
Yes.
Commissioner Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner McGann. I abstained because I was not here.
Okay, it has been approved. So now we'll move on. There is no old business, so we'll move on to new business. Our first case for the night is case number 2024-095. It is a request to approve a revision of the Sunrise subdivision affecting two lots at the corner of Hurt and Nail Road. Address is 6020 Hurt Road and 2380 Nail Road by IPD Engineering and Survey. The applicant is requesting to expand the dimensions of the lot at 6020 Hurt Road. I will turn this over to our director and for his presentation.
All right, so that image up there on the screen, it is basically one lot that has another lot inside of it, currently two addresses. And so, as was just said before, the objective for this request is to expand that 6020 lot at the corner. Next slide, please. And that just shows the current zoning. Right now, that smaller piece inside is zoned M1, and then that larger lot is PUD. And then you have some R8 to the west, C1 to the north, and M1 to the east and the south. Next slide, please. All right, so this right here is the current plat that has already been recorded and that that everybody's currently operating from. Shown on this slide is a detail of that existing plat that's been recorded, and the only change being requested is to expand the size of Lot 1 by increasing the length of frontage just on Nail Road only, and Lot 2 will not have its length or width changed on the perimeter. So Lot 1 is currently 218.86 feet by 218.82 feet, measuring from that northeast corner. And then Lot 2 is currently 605.27 feet by 767.45 feet, also measuring from that northeast corner. Next slide. And so on the proposed plat, the distances of the lots on the Hurt Road frontages will not change. And so if this is approved, then Lot 1 will be 218.88 feet by 411.54 feet, measured at that northeast corner line. And then Lot 2 would be 605.26 feet by 767.46 feet, measured at that northeast corner line. And as you can see, all that's going to do is just stretch that bottom lot towards the east. And nothing that we reviewed was actually affected by changing this lot size. Next slide, please. And as you can see, I added that zoning district regulation chart. And, well, next slide, please. This describes what I was just talking about on that chart. The minimum lot requirement for a PUD is 5 acres. So expanding that smaller lot wouldn't affect the requirements of the bigger lot. And then let's see, as for yard requirements, it's not applicable for lot 1 as there are no structures on it yet, so you don't have to worry about any setback regulations being violated. And then because the zoning chart doesn't specify any yard requirements for PUD zones, you also don't have to worry about any setback violations there. Next slide, please. And so basically I just went through and made sure that it didn't affect any other subdivision regulations. So this does not conflict with any easement requirements. Next slide, please. Same there, it didn't affect any easement requirements. Next slide. There were no streets proposed in this plat, so it made it a lot easier. It did not conflict with any street regulations. Next slide, please. And I'm just going through it real quick because I'm sure y'all read all this. Again, here it did not conflict with any street regulations because there were no new streets proposed on this plat. Next slide. Next slide. And that concludes it. Planning staff concludes that the revision to this current plat does not conflict with anything we saw in the ordinances regulating subdivision requirements, zoning requirements, or platting regulations. And expanding the length of the M1 lot into the PUD zone also doesn't violate any subdivision zoning or platting regulations. And that concludes the presentation.
All right,
Next
thank
slide.
you. Thank you. All right, do we have any, does anybody have any questions for the director? Is the applicant here? Just state your name and address.
Chance Walker, 8180 Airways Boulevard, South Haven.
All right, does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Just curious on your length that is, you needing it for the development of whatever the future might need?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. I think it's they're looking at a strip center maybe. I'm not really sure. I was just tasked to plat it. So
What was the original plan for this? Because I thought we already approved for something to go right here.
there's been a couple. I think a couple developers have tried to develop a C-store on it. I don't think that's been approved. I think there's been some zoning problems. At this moment in time, I'm not sure. We did the mini storage behind it. That's currently under construction. I think someone's trying to maybe look at just a commercial strip center there. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I just remember some of the issues with it being next to the school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
That was
it's still
brought up.
zoned M1, so nothing really commercial can go on it technically at this moment in time. So
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. All right, do we have any discussion or do we have a motion?
I just want to say I'm with Commissioner Stokes because it's right there in front of the school. And it's a very influential group of people right there at that school. That's our middle school. We have a lot of, everybody's coming into age and trying to figure out who they are and stuff. So anything we put right there could be very influential to these teenagers. So I think we should definitely take that into consideration.
All right, do we have a motion?
Chairman,
Go ahead.
Next review of case number 2024-095, the planning commission recommend approval of the submitted revision to the Sunrise subdivision plat affecting 2 lots at the corner of Hurt Road and Nail Road, address 6020 Hurt Road and 2380 Nail Road by PD Engineering and Survey.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kirkley? Yes. Commissioner Stokes?
Yes.
Commissioner Ware?
Yes.
Commissioner Vidal?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
No.
And Commissioner McGann, yes. Motion passes.
All right, we'll move on to our next case. Thank you. Next case is 2024-033. It's a site plan review for a coffee shop located at 2555 Goodman Road on land consisting of .45 acres under C3 General Commercial zoning being developed by Pyramid Coffee LLC. And once again, we will turn this over to our director.
All right, so showing up on the screen, we have Goodman Road, and the current address is 2555, and it's a small parcel right between 2563 and 2515 along Goodman Road on the south side. And next slide, please. And the current zoning is C3 for this parcel and the ones beside it, and there is a residential to the south. Next slide, please. And so I just added in here the requirements for building permits, just to show that it's got to go through the site plan review before getting the building permits approved. Next slide, please. And that's a continuation of that, and that's just showing what needs to be considered and looked at in the site plan review process. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right, so getting to the site plan itself, it is a small lot, and shown here, they were able to fit everything in on that .45 acre lot. This is the Scooters model. This is what they build all over the country. Small store, few parking spaces, and a drive-through that wraps around the store. It's a real simple concept that they're able to replicate on small lots across the country. Next slide, please. And this is just another view of that that same site plan layout. Next slide, please. And we can definitely go back to that if anyone has questions. So these are the building elevations. We have both side exterior elevations shown there. They both look pretty similar. Next slide. And so this is going to be the front and the back of the elevations. So the one on the left there, that's going to be what you see facing Goodman Road. And next slide, please. So this goes into the architectural standards that we had to review. It says the building design shall exhibit architectural control which seeks to be creative and which best utilizes building line shapes and angles to maximize architectural integrity. And first one is unadorned, pre-stressed, upright concrete panels, unfinished concrete block, galvanized or unfinished steel, galvanum or unfinished aluminum buildings, and pole-type building materials are not permitted as exterior building materials. We found that this meets that requirement. And then at least 50% of all exterior wall finishes shall be comprised of any combination of at least two of the following materials: brick, natural stone, glass, stucco or stucco-like finishes, and other comparable or superior material approved by the Planning Commission. And so we found that this exterior building material does meet that requirement. And then for commercial zoning districts, we have accent materials shall be used for cornices, sills, bases, lintels, banding, decorative accent trims. Accent materials shall consist of materials that meet or exceed the quality of the primary exterior materials and shall be consistent with the building design. This meets that requirement. A minimum of 20% of the facade facing the public right-of-way shall be glass, and this meets that glass percentage requirement. And then in non-residential uses in residential districts, a minimum of 30% of the facade facing the right-of-way shall be glass. This is not in a residential district, so that's not applicable. And then any new building shall be constructed so that all exterior sides shall be surfaced equivalent to the front of the building, and all sides are of similar design and construction, so it passes that. Next slide. This one comes up frequently. This one didn't pass that pitched roof requirement. We're required to mandate a pitched roof between 5 to 12 and 12 to 12 as much as possible. However, we find that this requirement is not necessary. So while it doesn't pass that, we recommend not enforcing that one, and we recommend waiving that one. Next slide, please. So for off-street parking and loading, we counted this one as a restaurant carryout, and so 6 spaces are required, and so we see that it includes 6 parking spaces. Next slide, please. And then handicap parking spaces. For the first 100 spaces, it's required to have 1 handicap space for every 25 spaces or fraction thereof. The site plan shows 1 handicap space along with the 5 regular parking spaces, so we see that it meets that requirement. And the site plan shows that the dimensions of the handicap spaces are 12.5 by 20 feet, which meets the minimum size for handicap parking spaces. And then the site plan shows that the dimensions for the regular parking spaces are 10 by 18 feet, which meets that requirement. And then more parking requirements. You got the rule that no more than 10 contiguous parking spaces shall be provided without the benefit of a landscaped island. You have landscaped islands on both sides. And then you got the requirement that landscaped islands shall have inside dimensions of not less than 5 feet wide and 17 feet long, or 35 feet long if there's double row parking. And then each side of the landscaped island shall have a continuous 6-inch high curb of concrete. It meets that requirement. Planting islands shall contain at least 1 tree, low shrubs, and ground cover. And it meets that requirement. If a vehicular area abuts a landscape buffer yard, continuous curbing shall be provided between the vehicular area and the required buffer yard, and it meets that requirement. And yeah, next slide, please. And the only caveat we had there was that it's recommended to replace the crepe myrtles located on the site with the species from the planning department's list of recommended tree species, which all that is a list of native species to this area. And there's plenty native tree species that are small or medium size that can replace them. Next slide, please. Dumpster enclosure. So dumpster enclosure needs to be screened from view with an enclosure and landscaping on the sides extending from the parking lot. And we see some landscaping there, and it's going to be hidden from street view, so it meets that requirement. Next slide. And then this one is the impervious area requirement. The zoning district regulation chart states that the maximum impervious surface on the lot for the C3 zone is 85%. So this one comes in at 72.2%, which easily passes that requirement. Next slide. And then here's the drainage plan detail. And they're shown in the smaller arrows on the side in the landscaping, but you can see how all the water is going to kind of slope towards Goodman Road rather than towards the south, towards the residential area. So that's the way we want it to be. And so all the proper drainage plans were submitted, and water saturation is adequately accounted for. And that concludes the presentation. We're assessing that it passes everything that we would like it to. And the only thing that we're recommending is, if recommended for approval, replace the crepe myrtles with a native tree species, and they can meet with us about that. And then they waive the requirement. You waive the requirement for a pitched roof, as it will drastically affect their design, and it's not really required, especially on such a tiny little building.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Do we have any questions for our director? All right, is the applicant here? Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Fisher Van Handel, W252N4885, Pewaukee, Wisconsin, 53072.
That was an interesting, you're
They-
sitting there looking at
they
it,
tried-
they're trying to remember it, I
They
get it.
tried to do grids or something with them.
All right, does anybody have any questions for the applicants?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I'm Alex Stapp with Linfield Hunter and Junius Engineers, the civil engineers for the project. Yes, we will be removing the existing building on site. However, no work is being proposed on the daycare center site at all. All grading has been designed to match existing grade at the property line, so that site will not be affected in any way.
Any other questions for the applicants?
I have a question. What made you pick that area?
What made us pick that area? That's a good question. I was not prepared for that one. So my group, the Pyramid Coffee team, we're franchisees of Scooters Coffee. We have a 10-unit development agreement with 2 units up and running. One's in Millington, Tennessee. One's in Covington, Tennessee.
Okay.
And specific to the design, it's a drive-through only coffee kiosk. Our position, and part of Scooter's position, is we believe we can go to markets where there's an under-penetration of coffee. My background's in kind of investment stuff, but the South has a very low penetration of coffee per population, per capita. Specifically, Mississippi and Tennessee are actually at the least penetrated in terms of coffee. That road specifically, or then additionally into that end, we like to focus on smaller markets. If you go right downtown and in different areas, you're competing against a lot more. So that's number one. And then the second portion of what we try to do specifically is to really get involved in the community. Once a month, we do 10% of our sales in a day of giving to a local charity. We've done that at Millington, we've done that in Covington. And the idea is really just to provide the brand promise, which is amazing drinks from amazing people, amazingly fast. So we try to get people through the drive-through really quickly. And I am from Wisconsin, so that's a tough question for me, but one of our partners, he's currently deployed overseas. He's the owner that will be in operations in Memphis. And so he could
No.
probably answer that better.
I thought it was great, because that's exactly what I wanted to hear, because that's what we want, is we want new growth. We want the new and not just the same redundant and everything. And I love the thing about wanting to give back to the community and stuff, because we have so much potential and stuff here. I think it's great, and I particularly love where it is. So I just was curious maybe where that kind of come from, but I just wanted to ask a little bit more. So you guys, you're not connected to the one that's in Olive Branch that they just built?
No, ma'am.
No, okay, all right, just curious. No, I love it, thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicants?
Yes, I do. Has there been a traffic study, because that is a very busy corner, for people coming and going? And I know it's backed up sometimes, right
Right.
there. And there's further down that, you
Right.
know, would be maybe more accessible.
So no traffic study was required for the site. We had a pre-development call with Mr. Andrew Hockensmith, who's been very helpful with this project as well. We were not required to perform a traffic study. We've looked at the site. There is ample stacking within the area. The site, before the property line, the site can accommodate 17 queued vehicles, and the additional pavement before Goodman Road, it can accommodate 19 vehicles as well. So there's ample stacking, queuing area on the site.
Okay, I think it will be a great improvement of the looks of the area, because that old building has been there. I've been in the city for 45 years, and so it's, needs to change some. And I think that is good, yeah.
All right, any other questions for the applicants? All right, thank you, guys.
I was gonna say, I'm just glad to see a nice building going up.
Awesome.
We got some more spots close to the train track that need to be done.
There you go. We've got more to put up.
I can't stand that area.
And I apologize for my dress. We opened our Covington store this
You're
weekend,
fine.
so it's been busy.
Yeah, you're fine, thank you. All right, do we have any other discussion? If not, do we have a motion? I can go ahead and read it. I need you to get your mic, turn your mic on. I need your mic. Thank you.
Case number 2024-33 is a site plan review for a coffee shop located at 2555 Goodman Road on land consisting of .045 acres under C3 General Commission zoning, being developed by Pyramid Coffee LLC. The Planning Commission approves the presented site plan. Impossible conditions to require: replace Cape myrtles with specific specimens from the recommended tree specimens list, waive the requirement for a pitched roof.
All right, so we have a motion with the additional requirements of replacing crepe myrtles with the recommended list and waive the requirement for pitch roof. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Stokes. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ware?
Yes.
Commissioner Kirkley? Commissioner Vidal?
Yes.
Commissioner Stokes?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Commissioner McGann? Yes. Motion approves.
All right, thank you, guys.
How you doing?
It has been approved. All right, moving on to our third case for the night. Case number 2024-085 is a site plan review for a gas station located at the corner of Nail and Horn Lake Road, parcel number 1-08932000003901 on land consisting of 2.56 acres under the PUD, commercial zoning, being developed by the Bray firm, David Bray. All right, we'll turn this back over to our director.
All right, so up there you got the aerial view of the property and the surroundings. This is at the intersection of Nail Road and Horn Lake Road. This is going to be right next to that Ravenwood F subdivision that's being built right now, and across the street from another gas station being built. And next slide, please. This particular site's going to be in a PUD zoning, and so when we looked at the PUD, it matched the what was allowed in that list of allowable uses under that PUD. Next slide. And so same as before, I listed all the requirements for building permits. Next slide. Next slide. Next And so, same as before, all those building permit requirements are required to be looked at during the site plan review. So you have the site plan shown here. It's going to be angled at the intersection, so the facade's going to be directly facing that corner. And we can come back to this if anyone wants to look at that site plan. Next slide, please. This is a zoomed-in view of that. And next slide, please. So we can go straight to the building elevations here. You got that first one is the street view. And next slide, please. And then that's the rear view of that. Next slide, please. And then here you have the other side of it. So they all are about the same design, and as you can see, I like this one here because you can see the brick veneer, the metal canopy, and the aluminum storefront called out on the imagery there. Next slide, please. And so this gets into what's actually required. So we see that the unadorned pre-stressed upright concrete panels, unfinished concrete block, galvanized or unfinished steel galvanum or unfinished aluminum buildings, and pole-type building materials are not permitted as exterior building materials. So this meets that requirement. Then you have the requirement that at least 50% of all exterior wall finishes shall be comprised of any combination of at least 2 of the following materials: brick, natural stone, glass, stucco or stucco-like finishes, and other comparable or superior material approved by the Planning Commission. And so the exterior of the building is more than 50% brick and glass, so it passes that. Next slide, please. So then accent materials shall be used for cornices, sills, bases, lintels, banding, and decorative accent trims. Accent materials shall consist of materials that meet or exceed the quality of the primary exterior materials and shall be consistent with the building design. So all materials meet that requirement. A minimum of 20% of the facade facing the public right-of-way shall be glass. So the glass percentage exceeds that requirement. In non-residential uses in residential districts, minimum of 30% of the facade facing the public right-of-way shall be glass. It passes that requirement since it's not actually technically in a residential district, but it's next to one. Next slide, please. And all sides are of the same construction, so it passes that last requirement. The only one that it didn't pass is that pitched roof requirement, and but as I stated earlier, we haven't been enforcing that one in a very, very long time, and so we think that the design of this is appropriate for all the other growth happening in the area, because all the C-stores are going for that same general look like this. So we're recommending to waive that requirement. Next slide, please. And then, so getting into the parking, based on our calculations from the square footage, we see that 30 spaces are required, and so the site plan includes 30 parking spaces, so it passes that one. Next slide. And then, so for the handicap parking spaces, you need 1 handicap space for every 25 spaces or fraction thereof. So the site plan shows 2 handicap spaces for the 30 regular spaces, so it meets that requirement. However, minimum dimensions for handicap parking spaces shall be 12.5 feet by 20 feet. The plan currently shows handicap spaces at 9 feet by 20 feet. And so it doesn't meet that minimum requirement, but I did talk to the the developer, and the developer will change this on an updated site plan. Next slide, please. So this here shows the dimensional requirements of the parking spaces. All the regular spaces have to be 10 by 18, and this passes that requirement as they've drawn them to be 10 by 20 feet. Next slide. And then so for the landscaping, we have no more than 10 contiguous parking spaces shall be provided without the benefit of, no more than 10 shall be provided without the benefit of a landscaped island. So it meets that requirement. The parking aisles shall be terminated at both ends of contiguous aisles with landscaped islands. Meets that requirement. And landscaped islands shall have dimensions not less than 5 feet wide and 17 feet long, or 35 feet long if there is a double row of parking. Each side of the landscaped island shall have a continuous 6-inch high curb of concrete. This requirement is met. Planting islands shall contain at least 1 tree, low shrub, and ground cover. This requirement is met. And if a vehicular area abuts a landscape buffer yard, continuous curbing shall be provided between the vehicular area and the required buffer yard, and it meets this requirement. Next slide. So the dumpster should be screened from view with an enclosure and landscaping on the 3 sides extending from the parking lot. As you can see there, the dumpster is it's got a lot of landscaping around it to hide it, and so it passes that requirement. And then the impervious area requirement. So in the chart states that the maximum impervious surface lot on the PUD commercial zone shall be 85%, and so this one comes in at 38.9%. So it very much meets that requirement. Next slide. And then we have the drainage plan detail. Proper drainage plans were submitted, and the water saturation is adequately accounted for. So we don't see there being any issues with drainage on this site. Next slide. And so that concludes the presentation. The only thing that we had for recommendations was to fix the dimensions of the handicap parking spaces to be 12.5 feet by 20 feet, and to waive the requirement for that pitched roof.
Thank you, Andrew. We're going to open this up to questions. My first question is I just want to understand that for this being the PUD, that this gas station is allowed in that position, on that site under its current.
Yes,
Ordinance and
we
zoning.
looked at the PUD, and it had a list of the allowable uses on that site, and so this one fell within the allowable uses.
Okay, do we have any questions for our director?
Yeah, Andrew, does this kind of fit into our comprehensive plan for the location of this type of business in that area?
Yes, so we're still operating under the old one, and we didn't see any conflicts with that. And as far as the new one, the goals of the new comprehensive plan coming, the biggest push is connectivity and walkability. They are committed to, as you can see on the plans, they have drawn in a sidewalk, and that was one of our biggest things is please have that sidewalk in there, connecting both sides of the road and to the intersection. So they did put a lot of thought into the walkability of the site, and native tree species plantings. I think they did the best they could with what they were given. Essentially, the overall Ravenwood subdivision, before this actual gas station was proposed, we would have liked it to see it connect to the neighborhood, but with the cul-de-sac design that they built there, I mean, this is the best that we're probably going to get for what's been laid out before us.
I thank you, Andrew. Does anybody else have any questions for our director?
Andrew, I do.
Yes,
Chair.
yeah, go ahead.
Andrew, will there be any shielding for the back of this gas station concerning the neighborhoods to the, was it west and north?
Yes, so
Side of the dumpster?
yes, so what the developer has proposed is, well, I guess it's not on the slides here, but in like where that cursor is,
Man, you start all over again.
he'll get back to it. Where that cursor was, they have prescribed a row of trees in that entire perimeter. So on that west side and that north side, the whole thing's going to be lined with trees. So when you're at the houses, you wouldn't be able to see the gas station across the street. And so there is no requirement for anything else besides the landscape buffer yard, but they are complying with that. And when they built Ravenwood F, they weren't required to put a buffer yard on those lots. And so while that is going to be wide open, this developer is going to be the one building the buffer yard, which is going to be trees.
Any other questions?
Didn't we require brick walls for the neighborhood right there?
Just on the road front, that's the only place?
Yeah, just on the road. It was as far as I know. I mean, I know this is a different case, but just along Nail Road, they're building the brick wall.
Any other questions? Is the applicant here? If you'll state your name and address for us, please.
Yes, sir. Excuse me. I'm David Bray with the Bray Firm, 2950 Stage Plaza North, Bartlett, 38134.
All right, do we have any questions for our applicant today?
Have you considered a fixture right there for separation between the houses and the property of this gas station?
You mean like a fence?
Like a fencing?
Yeah, we're calling out, and I'm sorry that they did not include the landscape plan in there, but we've got, I believe it's a 6-foot wood fence called along that perimeter wherever there's not a fence already by one of the residents, and then the landscaping, and it's a pretty extensive landscape buffer along there.
Right. I'm thinking of something just to shield the privacy of the homes right there a little bit more. When people in their backyards are probably in their homes, probably need something there. And just keep the traffic on the sidewalks.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions for the applicant?
What type of fencing do you propose?
Don't have the plan in front of me. I believe it was called out to be a 6-foot wood fence all along that perimeter. So you would have the fence immediately to the residential property line, and then the landscaping would actually be inside towards the gas station. And we've got a row of, I think it's 2 rows of trees, I believe, Andrew, with a row of pines that would be immediately to the fence because they will grow very fast, and then ornamental as we come in from those. Or maybe it's 2 row of pines. Billy's nodding. Okay. So it's in total, I think, about either 25 or 30 feet of landscaping, moving from property line towards the commercial building.
Thank you.
And I do apologize for the parking dimensions on the handicap spaces. I thought I found everything in the regs, and I missed that one. And as I told Andrew before the meeting, we'll be happy to change that.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
So you do agree to doing fencing, some kind of fixture?
Yeah,
to
yes.
separate, how high you say again?
I believe it was called out as a 6-foot wood fence.
All right, any other questions?
You have some rental bays you're gonna have be rented out along with a convenience store and gas station.
Yes, sir.
Any idea what type of business you might be involved with?
Do you have any of the bays rented yet? So, no, not at this time, sorry. It's a little premature for us.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. All right, do we have any other discussion, or do we have a motion? Anybody gonna make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right, make a motion.
After review of case number 2024-085, a site plan review for a building addition to the existing structure at the northwest corner of Fawn Lake Road and Nail Road on land consisting of 2.56 acre under PUD commercial zoning being developed by the Bray firm David Brady. Planning Commission approves the presented site plan with the possible following conditions. Handicap parking dimension be adjusted to meet the 12.5 feet by 20 feet requirement, waive the requirement for a pitch roof.
All right, the motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I second it, Chairman.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kirkley? Commissioner, excuse me, Commissioner Vidal?
Yes.
Commissioner Stokes?
No.
Commissioner Carter?
No.
Commissioner McGann? Yes. And Commissioner Ware? Excuse me. Commissioner Ware?
Yes.
All right, we have 4 yeses and 2 nos. Motion passes.
All right, thank you. All right, on to our last case for the night. Case number 2024-083 is a site plan review for an RV park located on Highway 51 North, parcel number 108-735-000-0000301 on land consisting of 18.61 acres under C3 General Commercial Zoning, being developed by Sandip Patel Engineer, the Bray firm. All right, we will open this back up to our director for presentation.
Up on the screen, we have the aerial view of the property. This is along Highway 51. And next slide, please. This lot is within C3 zoning. Next slide, please. And so, same here, that we have the requirements for the building permits for the site plan review. Next slide, next slide, next slide. All right, so up here you can see the general site plan. 1 second. All right, so basically it's going to be an RV park with a smaller convenience store / club area for the RV park up along Highway 51, and then on the back side there's going to be a little walking trail and more RV parking. And next slide, please. And so first we're going to start with the store up front along Highway 51. These are the building elevations. So you have that first one, which is going to be the west elevation facing Highway 51. Next slide, please. And then you'll have the north and south elevations here. And we can come back to this when we look at the architectural standards. Next slide, please. So getting into the architectural standards, we have again, unadorned pre-stressed upright concrete panels, unfinished concrete block, galvanized or unfinished steel, galvanum or unfinished aluminum buildings, and pole-type building materials are not permitted as a primary exterior building material. That meets that requirement. At least 50% of all exterior wall finishes shall be comprised of any combination of at least two of the following materials: brick, natural stone, glass, stucco or stucco-like finishes, and other comparable or superior materials approved by the Planning Commission. So this passes that requirement. Next slide. And then accent materials shall be used for cornices, sills, bases, lintels, banding, and decorative accent trims. Accent materials shall consist of materials that meet or exceed the quality of the primary exterior materials and shall be consistent with the building design. All materials meet this requirement. Minimum of 20% of the facade facing the public right-of-way shall be glass, and this glass percentage is met. And then non-residential uses and residential districts, minimum of 30% of the facade facing the public right-of-way shall be glass. That's not applicable because it's not a residential area. And then any new building shall be constructed so that all exterior sides shall be surfaced equivalent to the front of the building. The rear elevation of the building shall be exempt from this requirement, provided the rear of the building is not visible from public view. So all sides of this building are of similar construction. Next slide, please. And then we have the pitched roof requirement. As with the previous ones, for any one-story building less than 10,000 square feet, it needs to have a pitched roof between 5 to 12 and 12 to 12 as much as possible. This doesn't comply with that, but again, we're recommending that this one be waived. Next slide, please. And then, so for the parking requirements, we have, in our calculation, it comes out to 20.4 spaces are required, and this site plan includes 27 parking spaces, so it far exceeds that requirement. Next slide, please. And then, so for the handicap parking spaces, the site plan shows 4 handicap spaces along with the 23 regular parking spaces. And so it does meet the requirement on that. The minimum dimensions for handicap parking spaces shall be 12.5 feet by 20 feet. The site plan doesn't show the width of the handicap spaces, but it shows that they're 20 feet long, so it meets the minimum depth requirement, but they're going to just have to make sure they specify that 12.5 feet. Next slide, please. And then we have the regular parking spaces. So at 90-degree angles, the regular parking spaces need to be 10 by 18 feet. They're currently showing theirs at 9 by 18 feet. So they're meeting the requirement for the length, but not for the width. So they need to fix that if they were to have this site plan approved. That needs to be amended. Next slide, please. And then, so for the landscaping, we have no more than 10 contiguous parking spaces shall be provided without the benefit of a landscaped island. That requirement's met. Parking aisles shall be terminated at both ends of contiguous aisles with landscaped islands. That requirement's met. Landscaped islands shall have inside dimensions of not less than 5 feet wide and 17 feet long, or 35 feet long if there's a double row of parking. Each side of the landscaped island shall have a continuous 6-inch high curb of concrete. That requirement's met. Planting islands shall contain at least 1 tree, low shrub, and ground cover. That requirement's met. And if a vehicular area abuts a landscape buffer yard, continuous curbing shall be provided between the vehicular area and the required buffer yard. So that requirement is met. Next slide. And then for the dumpster enclosure, the dumpster should be screened from view with an enclosure and landscaping on the sides extending from the parking lot. As you can see, this zoomed in detail, they have called out for landscaping all around that dumpster enclosure. Next slide, please. And then, so finally, for the impervious area requirement, for this zone, in every C3 zone, maximum impervious surface on the lot is 85%. The new development will result in an impervious area that appears to be below the maximum 85% impervious surface area for the site. An exact percentage was not given to us, and if you would like, you can require that to be specified, but based on the way we measured it, it seems to be below that 85% impervious surface area. Everything's going to drain towards the east anyway, so nothing's going to be coming towards Highway 51 or the residential area. So we don't see drainage being an issue on this site. Next slide. And so, yeah, there's the drainage plan. All the proper drainage plans were submitted, and water saturation is adequately accounted for. Next slide. And that concludes the presentation, and we added some possible conditions to require if this were to be approved, and that includes specifying the width of the handicap parking spaces at 12.5 feet wide, specifying the width of the regular parking spaces at 10 feet wide, waiving the requirement for the pitched roof, and ensuring that the percentage of impervious area for the site be less than 85%.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew, and we'll move on to the questions. And the first one I was going to ask is, this RV park, it was originally, I know that we had to do some changes to the zoning or do a conditional use, I believe, and we did that probably last year or before. I do not recall there being a C-store or gas station being approved on that. I thought that was also a conditional use.
Yes, so I can definitely answer that. What's being proposed there, and the developer can absolutely answer this better, but what's being proposed there is actually, it's just a store for the people at the RV place, and I believe other people can also drive over and shop there too, but from my understanding, it's just snacks, and I don't really know the right terminology for it, like a clubhouse, hangout.
But there's no gas pumps.
Correct, no gasoline.
Okay.
on
Well,
site.
when I was first looking at it, looked like it, I didn't see the gas pumps, but I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page
Yes,
on that.
the construction of it is going to be similar to, a rectangle, just a rectangle brick and glass type building with snacks inside. So, yeah, and the developer may be able to answer the actual uses and sales aspect there.
Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have questions for Andrew?
I,
I'm not sure about that product, but
We can ask the developer when he gets up here. Okay. I mean, I'm just saying because Andrew, he said he did. Yeah, he said.
yeah, I can help out with a lot of the layout and the zoning and uses and landscaping, drainage, and architecture.
Any other questions?
yes, this is not specific to this one case, but I noticed that we continue to waive the requirement for the pitch roof. And I keep wondering, why do we have that in place if every time, every case, we
Technically,
keep,
it's still required, but we can absolutely address that on some upcoming meetings.
Okay, because I need that address, because
Yeah,
I see
we'll
no
gladly
sense in, yeah,
look into that for future meetings.
yeah, so.
Yeah, Andrew, I'd have to question the highest and best use of this property for that, 'cause with that other RV park we've got up 51. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a while back was voted down for another one right on south of if the one there by Churchwood or something came up, that they voted it down. I just don't see us needing another RV park in the Horn Lake area.
So Drew, this has already been voted in, correct? So we're just dealing with site plan now, right?
So, what the board, I know this was a while ago, what the board approved was the zoning for this area, and, I wasn't really expecting to get into the board's history behind this tonight, but I think they may have zoned it specifically for this use. I know the board did something very, very unusual for this.
I was gonna say, from my recollection, I believe that, I do not believe it passed this board. I think it
Yeah,
went.
that's
it
what I'm trying to figure out.
Went in front of the alderman, and they got it down to specifically for an RV. And that was something that was marked, when Director Barr was here, that he had to put it on there in a special notation, both for here in Horn Lake and in DeSoto County, so that way, I know he's been working with the GIS down there to make sure that we had and knew exactly what it was for.
Yes, it was extremely unusual.
So it
they-
didn't come through the planning commission like all the other cases?
The site plan never did, as far as,
What he's asking is, the board, the commissions here didn't approval for the RV park. That was done at the alderman level, because they did a special concised.
'Cause I'm worried about that, because I know that community, Arbor Lakes.
as far as I know, that was just for the zoning, which typically the board will approve, like, this is C4, this is C3, this is AR, this is R, whatever. But because of that thing you were talking about, where Mr. Barr had to go to the county and request some special layer and notation, because the board.
Approve this too then?
Well, I mean, that's why it's very unusual. They approved the rezoning for a very specific use within a list of uses, but they never approved a site plan. So that's why it's always just been left alone. And tonight we're seeing the site plan come before the Planning Commission for the first time, because site plans just go to the Planning Commission, and so the board would not have seen or heard that site plan case.
So the site plan for the RV park, has it been approved?
No, so this is what is here tonight. The other thing the board did was, not only did they do the thing with approving it for the use of an RV park, but also the use of a store along Highway 51. And so they kind of did like a double use, extra specific thing with the zoning, but they never approved a site plan. So, I mean, this site plan you're seeing tonight, you can approve it or deny it, but the zoning is going to remain there as being zoned for an RV park and a store. But what y'all can do tonight is, I guess, mandate the layout of it and what it's going to look like, and the details of the landscaping, the drainage, the parking, the architecture.
The applicant come up and speak on it.
They already did it.
Again, David Bray with the Bray Firm, 2950 Stage Plaza North, Bartlett 30134. I don't know if this will clear the waters or muddy the waters. I was not involved when this case originally went through. There was a different planning group that was involved at that time. It was the same ownership. It was still Sam Patel and his group. But it's my understanding there was a site plan when I received this. There was a site plan that was attached and very specific. I would not call it a civil engineering site plan. It was an architectural site plan. It was a little fuzzy on dimensions and things like that, but I was told to keep within the spirit of what I was given on that architectural site plan. So something was presented to a board. I don't know if that was your BMA or planning commission or whatever, but it's my understanding that it had gone through several iterations, and they were very specific in wanting the layout and landscape buffers and things like that precisely the way it had been approved, and that's what we have tried to adhere to here. And so that was the basis for our plan coming in here. I want to go back a little bit because caught me off guard when the C-store was mentioned, not a C-store. What that building is, about the best way I could describe it is to think of it as a lobby of a hotel, because these are RV spots, but this would be where the office is, this would be where showers are, this would be the indoor recreation, probably some ping pong tables, pool tables, things like that. And then, you know, a general market, but not any different than if you were to check into a hotel and you go down to get the kids some snacks and some soft drinks and things like that. So we're not talking about a convenience store type setup.
All right, any questions for the applicant?
Well, what's your name again, sir?
I'm sorry, David Bray with the Bray Firm.
David Brake. This is the issue. The purpose of the commissioner board is to make recommendations to the alderman board. And without us having a chance to do the site plan part, I mean, not the site zoning part of it, and it's going around some kind of loop sound like it, that avoided us.
They came before us. We denied it.
We denied it.
We denied it.
Okay.
Then they took the denial for that zoning to the board, and then the board came up with, because we wasn't going to allow C-stores or anything, if I recall, from this board, because we didn't want a C-store. And that was kind of, I think, in the original plan, to have a C-store there. And we didn't want that, we may not even want an RV park. I can't remember on that part. And that we denied it, it went to the board, and the board wanted to make sure that they didn't have 64 uses. They specifically used it only for an RV and the store, and that's where it came from. It came from the board. It did come before us.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to clear that up. It did come before.
Andrew, do you have that in your records?
Yes, that's what happened. The board had the final say on the zoning, and they took the whole zoning, just trimmed it down to just this use and this use, and then the land's been left alone since that time.
But we still don't have to approve it though, even though the zone is for that. I mean, we have to think about our neighbors and stuff around there. So,
Let's not get in the weeds on that. It's been approved for that.
It's been approved
For that
for that
zone.
use.
What we're here for is the site plan.
That is
Correct.
what I'm saying. It's already been approved.
right.
Yes.
To say,
To debate.
we don't want this anymore. It's already been approved.
It's
by the
already
city.
been approved.
The zoning has been approved. The site plan has not been approved. This is what we're voting on, is the site plan, not the zoning. The zoning went around through the board, but this is a site plan, so we can still say yes or no on the site
But
plan.
this is my take. There is nothing wrong with the site plan. So us not voting for it doesn't really make sense. It can be a personal vendetta. There's no logic not to approve it because it's already been, you weren't on the board at the time, but it's already been approved. So we have to, I mean, you don't have to vote for it if you have a personal,
Right,
you know,
well,
but if the site plan is in order and everything is taken care of, there's really no logical reason to deny it.
I don't know, you could really still think about it, though. There's a daycare right beside there. There's people who value their homes and stuff around there, and you put in another RV park, just like you said, just right up the road. A lot of these people just live there. A lot of these people just go and then they live there, and then they're living in their RVs and things, and then you gotta think about upkeep. So there's a lot to go into it. It still needs to be,
The
I feel
same
like, thoroughly
question is gonna
considered.
be, why do we rezone? Why do we use variances? You know, we're gonna, you know, it's gonna be going on and on and on and on, so.
And I all I will say is, for the record, because I was on board that, and I know Jim was too, and so was Linda, is that the arguments that you just made was made on this original board when we were looking at zoning, and we can't change zoning. Now, if the applicant is unwilling to make the necessary changes based on the recommendations of our director, which is the 9 by 10 to change from it to 10 by 18,
no, you're fine. And we are in agreement with those conditions. I don't think I'd said that. Okay.
I'll make the motion. Case number 2024-083, the site plan review for RV park located on Highway 51 North, parcel number 108735-000-0000301 on land consisting of 18.61 acre on the C3 General Commercial Zoning being developed by Sandeep Patel, engineer, the Brave Firm. The Planning Commission approved the presented site plan with the following conditions being met. You want me to
Yeah,
read
go ahead and
them?
read 'em.
Okay. Specify width of handicap parking space be at least 12.5 feet wide. Width of regular parking space must be increased to at least 10 feet wide. Waive the requirement for a pitch roof. The percentage of impervious area for the site be sent to the planning department and be less than 85% of the site area.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ware?
No.
Commissioner Kirkley? No. Commissioner Vidal?
Yes.
Commissioner Stokes?
No.
Commissioner Carter?
No.
Commissioner McGann? Yes. Motion is denied, 4-2.
Thank y'all. All right, we have no other business. Do you have anything for us?
I do not have anything extra tonight.
All right. Well, seeing that there's nothing else, I wish everybody a great holiday for the 4th of July, and do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
Oh. I don't know if it-
Steve?
You can proceed.
All right. All right, do we have a second? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any